subscribe to get daily Manchester United content from passionate Reds, only on All for United.
Welcome everyone to the Fan Zone on All for United. A really interesting show once again. We have a fantastic panel on the team tonight. I am your host, Grant. It's nice to once again be on. We're going to go from left to right. So directly to my right is Chucky. How you doing, pal?
Doing great.
Nice to see you over the States. Yeah, good to see you as well. Further on to my right is the one and only Callum. How you doing, my good man?
Doing well, Grant. Looking forward to tonight. Thanks for having me on.
No, it's great to have you on. You are a font of knowledge on Manchester United, so it's great to have you on, my good man. Directly below me is the one and only Greg, another fellow Scot. How you doing, pal?
Yeah, I'm not too bad. Doing all right. I'm trying to get over this sort of winter cold thing that's kicking about around here. It's not COVID, but it's just this like super cold that's going on. So I just need to get rid of that. But apart from that, I'm all right.
Well, take care, pal, and hopefully you're staying safe and making sure you're keeping healthy as well. Right of Greg is, of course, John Kermode. John, welcome back to the show, my good man.
Thank you very much, everyone. Had a nice few days over Christmas. Hope everybody else did. And looking forward to talking about United again.
Yeah, I think everybody is as well. And I hope everybody tuning in to the show tonight had a very safe and Merry Christmas. And we wish you very much all the best for a prosperous 2022 when it indeed does come around. Andrew Wall, fellow contributor to the show, says evening to everybody as well. And of course, don't forget to please like and subscribe. We are on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and other social media platforms. So do go and check us out wherever you follow All for United. Gents, it's been a really interesting last couple of days. Manchester United obviously coming off the back of a rather disappointing performance, drawing 1-1 at St James's Park against Newcastle United. I want to just get a general flavour from the panel here on their thoughts on the game. And Chucky, I'm going to start with you. It was, as I said, a pretty disappointing performance, but ultimately United managed to get something out of a game where it didn't play all that well.
It was the poorest showing this season. It's simple. The math was simple. Newcastle had allowed in around 41 goals. They had only won one game. So it doesn't matter what team we played, whether it's the A team, B team. We could have played the whole COVID team, right? And we should have done something with this Newcastle team. It's simple. You know, it didn't matter if it was Carrick or McKenna, Ole or Ragnick. There's something fundamentally wrong with the squad, right? And this was the test. We've seen similar showings versus Norwich, Crystal Palace. You know, we're struggling to create and score goals. We're getting into this weird LVG era where we finally have a tactician, which we've been screaming for, and results are not devastating. And because the results are not devastating, we're not winning, we're not scoring more than one goal. Then you go into the culture war of, Neville said it best, will a manager come in and change United, or will United change a manager? This 4-2-2, this narrow system, which I know it can be played wide because you have the fullbacks that can bring width, is anti-United culture. We want our wingers, whether it's Rashford or what's the line that came from Sancho, we want them in the wide positions and not playing as number 10s, right? The only way Ragnick sees a lot of joy with the system he's playing is if we start dominating teams. If we start winning 3-0 or 3-1 or 4-1. If we go back to the 1-1, 1-0 a la LVG Mo, it's not going to be sustainable. So he has quite a few things to go work at. It was a terrible showing, period.
I think you make some extremely salient points, Chucky, and it certainly was an extremely frustrating affair for many Manchester United fans, and I certainly, watching the game, felt your anger and frustration there with your comments there, and I think that was a very, very good analysis that you gave there. Cal, I'm going to come to you. Similar sort of question, really. I mean, what was your thoughts on the game? I mean, ultimately, we needed a little bit of fortune, potentially, you could say, but I would also say it was some great movement from Edinson Cavani to rescue a point, but ultimately, as well, it was another fantastic display goal from David De Gea.
You're spot on, Grant. David De Gea has been arguably United's best player this season, and I think that sums up where the club are at the moment. He was the best player, as Chucky said, under LVG. And again, that painted where United were at the time. It's been a frustrating season. I personally don't think that United should be sitting considering another full rebuild. There is a lot of quality in this squad, but as I'm sure all the guys would agree on, there certainly is an attitude problem. The leaks coming out today in The Athletic and many other sources in England are laughable. Players unhappy about the training schedule. I mean, Ralf Rangnick's been in for 2.5 weeks, and already there's complaints that are being leaked to members of the media, and that worries me because an interim manager, one of the criticisms of it is that players can turn off quite quickly because they know this guy's only going to be here 6 months. I don't need to worry too much about him. It's the next guy I need to worry about. And you would think with Ralf Rangnick having a 2-year consultancy role at the club following this spell that the players would be scared and they would want to be buying into everything as soon as possible. But again, as Chucky said, Norwich was very, very poor, very fortunate to get all 3 points. Newcastle, very poor as well, which is a worry given the fact that Norwich and Newcastle are arguably the 2 worst teams in the Premier League, or have been up until now. You could put Watford in there, and we all know how that one ended as well. So it's been a worrying couple of months. Obviously, I'm not going to go overboard and panic. I think when any new manager comes in, it takes time, regardless of whether they're interim or not. When Chelsea have changed managers, they've normally had a really settled squad. You think of the likes of Terry and Drogba that Avram Grant walked into and Gus Hiddink walked into. United don't really have that, in the sense that Sancho, Ronaldo and Varane, all quality players, arrived in the summer. Varane and Sancho in particular have had niggles, been in and out of the team. Ronaldo, of course, is Ronaldo. We know he's performed well this season, but it's not settled the way I think Ralf Rangnick will want it to be. But as you say, Grant, just to round that off, it was a poor performance. Ralph said it was a 0.1. I personally disagree. It was 2 points lost for me. It was a dreadful display.
No, I think that's very fair analysis, and I absolutely agree with yourself there. I think it was 2 points dropped, but it wasn't a great performance, and I think Newcastle fans who are maybe tuning in to have a bit of reaction to this will feel, how on earth did we not win that game, considering late on they hit the post. Almiron had that effort that was superbly saved by De Gea. They were just more hungry, I felt, than United throughout the entire game, and they just wanted it more. And they were the team that were battling for points at the bottom of the table, and it certainly showed. Andrew Wall made a very interesting point. I just want to bring this up. The first half was shambolic watching from the stands. Slightly better in the second half. It was thanks to De Gea's fantastic saves that kept us in the game, and Cavani's equaliser that got us a point. Rachel also says, hey guys, nice to see Rachel tuning in as well. Greg, going to come to you on this next point, because obviously Rafa Varane was back in defence alongside Harry Maguire. It was safe to say he didn't have his best game, shall we say. Certainly one of the culprits I felt at the goal for Alain Saint-Maximin. Maybe not entirely all his fault, but certainly a scruffy return for the Frenchman who, of course, has won so much in the game.
Yeah, I thought it was really weird. He looked like someone that hadn't played for 8 or 9 weeks. He looked like someone that wasn't at that match level sharpness. He was maybe match fit, but he wasn't match sharp, and you saw it with the way that Newcastle goal went in. It was just a lackadaisical turn. He needs to get a shout, really, whether he got the shout and ignored it, or whether he got the shout and just didn't pick it up, that he's turning into danger. What he really should have done was pass it back to De Gea or pass it to Maguire, or just get rid of it in that situation with your back to goal and a player like Saint-Maximin or really any of that, even Fraser and Wilson chasing you down. It's not really a place you want to be as a defender at all. I thought after that Varane shored up a little bit. He played a lot more safe than we've seen him. He didn't really pick up the ball and sort of drive through like he did for a couple of seasons, or his last couple of seasons at Madrid. He really took on that role to try and push forward and drive the team forward. He didn't really do that. It's not something we've seen a lot of him for Man United. It's something more Maguire's done. I think it's hard for people to judge Varane. Obviously, he's not. I don't think he was match sharp, but with everything he's won, it's very hard to see him not being. He's going to be important for Man United in big games, and it's just something we're going to have to deal with. Like, it's an individual error. how many of these did we have under Ollie, even when in the good times, sort of the first 18 months? How many games did Man United lose because of individual errors? And there's not a lot the manager can do for individual errors. Where the issue comes from is where St Maximin's getting all these chances from during the game. I thought Dalot had a solid enough game. I think he's good enough defensively, but what he doesn't need Maguire to step all the way across to get into his line as well. Because effectively what you had was Dalot and Maguire stood beside each other and then a big gap on the inside for St Maximin to run into. And all they had to do was try and force St Maximin in that gap between Dalot and Maguire. Make him cross it, make him get rid of the ball because he was the one that was going to hurt us. And a player like Harry Maguire should know that. And I think it's just becoming more and more noticeable to a lot more Man United fans that Harry Maguire isn't at the level that we need him to be if we want to win things. He can have good games. He raises the floor of the team, but he will never raise the ceiling of this Man United team. And I don't think he ever will. And I don't think he's got the presence as captain to be able to lift them further. So I think Varane will improve, will get better. But where Maguire stands, if Rangnick stays, I'm not sure.
Yeah, I think one of the interesting things we need to think about as well is that Varane and Maguire, I think, have only played a handful of games together as a centre-back partnership. And that's also something that if Maguire is going to improve, and also Maguire is also going to help Varane as well improve too. I do think that's going to be an interesting point. Callum, you wanted to come in on Maguire. I'll let you have your say on that.
I totally agree with Greg on Maguire. Brian Robson has got obviously a new film out. If you've not watched it, I recommend you watch it. And you watch the Brian Robson film, you watch Roy Keane on Sky, you even watch Wayne Rooney speak as Derby manager, and you look at Harry Maguire, and I don't mean to be disrespectful, but I just think to myself, how on earth can you be Manchester United captain? For me, he's someone who shirks responsibility. His interviews in the press, I mentioned recent form concerning me. I don't think he painted himself well in the press. I'm only here because I was told to be here, I think was the comment. That's not leadership. That's cowardly, in my opinion. And I don't want to dig him out too much because undoubtedly he is a good centre-half. But as Greg has said, is he good enough for United to win Champions Leagues and challenge at the elite level? Absolutely not. I don't know if you've also saw the clip of Rafael van der Vaart talking about him. On the continent, there are many pundits who watch top-level European football more than I do. I watch, obviously, the highlights of Serie A, La Liga. I watch a lot of Bundesliga. People are baffled that in the UK he's considered to be an elite centre-half because I don't think he is. I don't think he's the leader United need. As I say, I don't think long-term he's the answer. And the thing that's most shocking for me is the more Maguire plays week in, week out, the more I want Lindelof to partner Varane, and I never thought I would say that at the start of the season. I hope he can turn it around. I hope he can get some good form back, because as I say, I am not disputing the fact he's a good centre-half, but for me, he's never, ever going to be that elite centre-half United need. And the last thing the club need is to try and spend big money on another centre-half this summer. So Ralf Rangnick needs to either pinpoint someone with potential that can come in for a reduced fee and potentially learn alongside Varane, or something needs to be done in that holding role very quickly, because United cannot afford to spend another 60, 70, 80 million on a centre-half when you've got a holding midfielder required, probably another striker if Cavani leaves, and a right full-back who's going to be there consistently going forward. So big concerns in that defence, which, as I say, I never thought I would be saying now, given Varane came in the summer and Shaw's form last season, which is also went off a cliff.
Yeah, no, I think you make some very good points there, Callum. Chucky, you wanted to come in and have your opinion on Maguire as well?
I think we should be a little bit more careful with Maguire. Look, a player that's going through a bad form doesn't mean he's a bad player. And Maguire, so just think about the final in the Europa League when he was in there. Then think about the European Championship. Did he make like team of the season or something? Like, he was one of the better defenders on the continent, playing in a very high stake competition full with top European talent. So he's needed there. You add a variable that this is a guy that's played 3 seasons, even more seasons before he joined United, almost every single game. Maguire is almost like 100% attendance record for most of his teams. You know, I think he's suffering the same thing Wan-Bissaka is suffering. Just overexposure, playing all the games. He needs some rest. I think mentally he's lost his way. Mentally, there's something going on there. I don't think you become a bad player overnight. I don't think he's £80 million player. I don't think he is. I don't think he's elite. I don't think he is. But he's way better than what he's showing right now.
Yeah, no, I think that's some very interesting points, and I've actually some really good comments here. Somebody saying the Weekly Armchair Sports that said Maguire isn't fit to wear the shirt. Andrew Wall says the defence was left with no protection time and time against. Newcastle ran at our back four, while Maguire was flat-footed and unable to turn quickly enough to block Saint-Maximin's goal-bound shot. That was obviously for the goal. Jacob O.C. says, I don't really mind if we have a centre-back. We're not good enough in attack. We don't put fear into teams, so we make fear for ourselves and our centre-backs. If we looked better at attack, we would be more confident. John, I'm going to come to you because we've not spoken to you yet, and obviously I wanted to talk to you about the defensive setup as well. But one thing that really was alarming for me in the game, as well as the defensive problem, was the fact that when we went a goal down, didn't really create too many chances. I know it's early days under Rangnick, but is that just as big a concern for you?
Yeah, it is, absolutely. And I just think whenever, and we'll speak about the mentality of the players, but when there's a crowd, you know, like the atmosphere at Newcastle the other day, when this team is under massive pressure, they tend to bottle it. And it showed that the other night that we just couldn't cope with Newcastle. They went a goal up and they were still pressing. The atmosphere got to them. And in regards to Maguire, I think he is nervous, and he felt a bit intimidated by the atmosphere, and it showed by some of his decision making, some of his passing. In regards to the captaincy, obviously he's not a United captain compared to the ones we've had in the past. And basically, and I follow England. Maguire's not the captain of England, and he plays well for England. For me, you know, watching him the Euros and that, and it was against Albania and San Marino, but he looks more comfortable playing for England, and I think whether the reason for that is he doesn't have the captaincy, and therefore he's allowed to be the person he's meant to be, because I think he is a good player. I think something has to be done about the captaincy with him, and he needs a spell on the sidelines, like a game or two, just to say, you know, just because you're the captain, just because you're £80 million, you're not a guaranteed starter. And I think hopefully if we give the captaincy to someone like, I don't know, Ronaldo, let's say, it might just spur him on and just say, for the sake of your United career, Harry, we'll take it off you, but allow you to be the player you can become. Because I actually think if you took the armband off him, he'll probably improve as a player for United. In regards to the actual overall defensive pressure, we've relied on De Gea so often this season, and you just look at under Ollie, when Carrick was in charge, and now under Rangnick, we just cannot cope with pressure. We've not won anything for 4 years. And, you know, the Villarreal final, you just look back to it, we should have won that game, and we didn't. And I think if we had won that game, the mentality of some of these players having won something would have improved us going into this season. And the fact that we didn't, they have that bottle mentality. And I know we'll go into some of the, some of the rumours that have come out in the media the past 24 hours. But I think what Rangnick needs to do is about looking at the mentality of the players. And obviously we brought in a psychologist a few weeks ago, and he needs to find a way of trying to get the best out of players and making them believe in themselves again. Under Rangnick, we've had 4 games and we've only scored 1 goal in each of those games. And if you include the Carrick interim games, the 3 of them we had, the only benefit from all those games is that we haven't lost any of them, but it's virtually the same performances, barring the first half against Crystal Palace. It's virtually the same games, the same performances that we were experienced on the rally. The only difference is we haven't lost any yet, but that has to improve over the next few games. Otherwise, I do fear for Rangnick going forward.
Yeah, no, I think he makes some, again, very good points, John. And I think Jacob made an interesting point as well, very similar to what you said there. We've not conceded that many goals recently. We should be scoring, creating more. There's some other mid-talker. Marius has made a very interesting point. He says, I told you Ollie wasn't the problem. Less than a month in, and the players are going manager out. Very interested to hear that comment. We could maybe get a little bit of thoughts on that. He also says, rather than the good defenders to bail us out with 1-0s or 2-1s every week, we have to be a bit more creative. Jarvis Cocker says, Maguire is too slow, and his readings of the game isn't good enough to compensate for his lack of pace, and I'm afraid he will struggle to improve his obvious shortages. And Andrews just again commented saying, United are struggling to create chances each and every game at the moment, and when we have gone a goal down early, this is played into the opposition's hands. Even also has an interesting point of view. He says, I think it was Maguire, he should be a captain and say to Ronaldo, you're the real captain, take the armband, and in the meantime, I'm going to fight for my place in this team. Always very interesting to hear your views and keep them coming in to the show. We're obviously going to move on to talk about the next game against Burnley, but I want to just get you guys' thoughts on the attacking side of the game a little bit more in depth, because obviously Ralf made a few changes at half-time in the game against Newcastle. He took Fred off, he took Mason Greenwood off, he made changes at half-time. One person that I want to talk to about more dominantly is Marcus Rashford, because his form, for me, has gone completely off the boil, not just recently, but I would say over the last few months. And Chucky, I'm going to come to you first. What's your opinion on Rashford? Because it just hasn't happened for him this season, has it? You're on mute, man, Fred.
Thanks. The club isn't doing him any favors by protecting him. Look, when Rangnick was appointed, I was happy because this is somebody that we know as a football person, right? A football nerd that will actually bring some tactical news to the club. So the club needs to really detach from this Disneyland model, right? And let the football people do what they need to do. There's no reason for Rashford being on the field other than he's a good political pick. He is. He's everything the club loves to advertise on Twitter Spaces, their media spots. You know, he's a good ambassador for the club. I love what he's doing off field, but on field, he's not ready to be there to start. No, he definitely isn't. So he needs to be sat down. That goes for the rest of the team. The team is inconsistent because why? I'll tell you a short story. I was trying to look for it today, but I couldn't find it. But I remember reading back in the day, we were talking about a United psychologist. The Brazilian teams would do personality tests on their players, and they'll try to match, and they'll give them color codes and zone them, and try to match similar players on the field, right? And to give them that cogent cohesiveness that gave them really good World Cup results. United is the exact opposite. We've recruited based on individualism, right? Can you remember during Fergie's time, we knew who was what? You knew Bruni will give you the same output. Carrick will give you the same output. Scholes will give you the same output. Yes, they'll have one or two off games, but generally these are steady eddies, right? Think of any player. Think of Conte, right? Then you think of, we knew who Nani was. We knew Nani was going to be inconsistent. Why? Because that's the player he is. We have too many nannies on our field. It's just simple. It doesn't matter what the manager, we will never look like we're gelling because Rashford, Greenwood, Sancho, whoever, McTominay, name any player, even that he had just recently started getting back into his own. We have too many nanny players on the field, right? So we need to start protecting the players like Rashford and Bruno. Nobody wants to say Bruno because he scores a lot of goals and he does assists. But he's been inconsistent too. It doesn't help. This is Oli all over again, right? You have to have a meritocracy and give rewards to players that are actually doing the things on the field, not in training, on the field. and use your bench. Use your substitutes. Call the cavalry in if your first choices aren't producing results. We're going nowhere fast just doing the same thing.
I think that's some really interesting points. And I loved your analogy there of Nani, and I quite like Nani when he was at Man United, but I completely agree with what you were saying there. He did infuriate me at times because he was so inconsistent. He would be a match winner in some games, but in other games he would be really, really up and down. Just give you a couple of comments before I go to Callum next. He was talking about Rashford. Rashford too clumsy to be an elite winger. Look at Mane, Mbappe, Grealish, etc. He looks nowhere near. Andrew comes in as well saying Rashford has not been a great forward, but he had forced break and he looked a little lost to the attacking midfield role against Newcastle. Also, the right way that Ranić deployed him in. I mean, Callum, we've talked a lot about Rashford this season. Does the system under Ranić not suit him?
I think the system, as it is it's interesting because Mason Greenwood obviously was starting the other night, and Ralph said he was going to play as a striker, which made you immediately think, right, well, who's going to be behind him? Because, as Chucky said at the very start of the show, you're not playing with out-and-out wingers. You're playing with inverted wingers or two number 10s, if you want to look at it that way. So, if you look at this United team, you have to play with conventional wingers. Rashford, you would say, is a winger. Sancho certainly is a winger. If someone like Martial, who I know looks as if he's leaving, is going to play, he's going to have to play wide because there's no way he's going to play through the middle when you've got a player like Ronaldo. So, the problem that United have is, I think Ronaldo, as Gary Neville said in Sky at the weekend, is better with a partner. I think agree. Ronaldo will be better with Greenwood alongside him or Cavani. However, if you're playing two players up front, you're sacrificing wingers end of. You're either playing a diamond, which obviously takes the width away and you're relying on the fullbacks. You're playing the 4-2-2-2, which again makes the fullbacks responsible for the width, or you're changing to a 3-5-2, which again might suit someone like Maguire, as John said earlier, plays very well for England in that system. But again, do United have real conventional wing backs? I mean, I know you could say Telles and Dalot could do that job, that's fine, but if they're doing that job, where does Sancho come in? Where does Rashford come in? And I think that's the problem that United have. For many years, it's been disjointed in terms of recruitment. Van Gaal wanted X, Y, and Z, so he got it. Mourinho wanted X, Y, and Z, and he got it until the club got fed up with him, asking for more, and they decided to make a change. Ollie started to sign players that were, I would say, more of a Manchester United idea. The likes of Dan James, I know he got criticism from people, but United always, over time, signed a highly up-and-coming young British player. Maguire, you could say, was one of the best British players at the time in the Premier League. They signed him as well. Now you're looking at this, and the thing that worries me is Ranić's here in charge of the club for 6 months as a manager. He's going to be sticking around for 2 years in a consultancy role. Is he going to have the power and the say to recruit players who will fit this 4-2-2-2 system? You look at Jurgen Klopp, when he came into Liverpool, the credit I'll give FSG is, this is the way I'm going to play. This is a system and the intensity levels I demand. And if you can't reach them, you're out. He played the same way. The players that couldn't fit into the system left. He replaced them with better fits. It took him a couple of years, don't get me wrong. They were still finishing outside the Champions League places. Then he gets to the Europa League final, Champions League final, wins the league, wins the Champions League. You're looking at a situation and thinking, do United have the patience for another rebuild? I personally don't think so. Chucky mentioned the Disneyland analogy earlier. I know Ed Woodward is technically leaving the club, although he also may stay around on a consultancy basis. So United, I've got big questions on the recruitment side. The likes of Rashford and Sancho are always going to struggle if you don't play with conventional wingers, in my opinion. So you have to make cold decisions. Do you recruit to support Ralf Rangnick? And if he picks the next manager, are you going to recruit players that are going to suit that ideology going forward? Or are you going to continue to have a mishmash of players that can't really play in certain positions but are forced to because there's no alternative? That's the concern for me. But just to round up on Rashford, I think we all thought the operation that he got was a great thing for him. It would make him fully fit. He'd come back, he'd be refreshed, he'd be ready to go. Unfortunately, he's just not in good form at the moment. And as Chucky said, he should be on the bench for a few games. But who's going to come in and do a better job at the moment? That's the worrying thing. Sancho's been inconsistent. Greenwood's been in and out of the team. Not saying he shouldn't be on the bench. I think he should. But the unfortunate thing is there's no guaranteed go-to option at the moment, which is quite sad.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree with you, Colin. I think, again, you make some really good points there. And also talking a bit about Sancho as well and the system, I think that was very noticeable. Say there's a lot of man love for you tonight, Chucky. And Jarvis has said he agrees with you. We have too many nannies in our team. Inconsistent players give inconsistent performances. It's that simple. Greg, I'm coming to you next because you were eager to get involved in chatting next. So sorry for keeping you so long, my good man.
No, that's all good. It's just about Rashford. Like, I made a comment through the week in one of the chats I was in with Keenan that I think Rashford's the same 18-year-old kid and a 24-year-old. He's not improved. He's the same player he was when he came in, and he's always going to be the same player. He's a flashy winger that when he gets the ball, he used to take on people. He used to challenge people with his pace and really drive at people, but he doesn't do that anymore. He gets the ball and he stops and he thinks about things. And most time when he stops and thinks about things, he makes the wrong decision. His decision-making over the last 12 months has been the worst it's ever been in a Man United shirt. Like, there was a point in that game the other night where he just kept running and he had one option on the inside to his left, and I think it was maybe Bruno or Ronaldo on the outside on the right, and he just kept running and running and running and then ran at the edge of the box and hit a shot and it came to nothing. It was like, that's decision-making you expect from an 18-year-old kid. It's not decision-making you expect from someone that's played the amount of games that Rashford has standing in the squad. And I agree with Chucky. He's in the team because he looks good. He's exactly what he's a Man United born and bred. He's doing all this for children. He's feeding the children with his government campaigns and stuff like that. He does a lot of things that make Man United look great. And when he's successful, Man United's social media can run off the back of that. And I think that's why he's in the team. Like I said when Sancho was signed that Sancho is by far our best winger now. And he's so much more of a player than Marcus Rashford is. He's so much more of the finished article than Rashford is, or ever will be. I don't think Rashford will ever get to that level. And I think I agree with Callum as well that if Man United have to play with width. This 4-2-2 is not going to last very long unless you're telling those number 10s to play so wide that you're leaving a massive hole in the middle. And that's where McTominay and Fred will be punished. So yeah, I think he will revert back to some form of wide system, but Rashford has to be out the team. It has to be Sancho starting somehow. And then even if you want to start Greenwood on the way, Rashford can't be in this team anymore. He's done 12 months now pretty much of being the most inconsistent player he's been in the Man United shirt, and just powering through, like eventually working his way through games will not get him out of it. He needs to be out of the team, away from the spotlight, because it's just going to end up worse and worse.
Mm-hmm. No, I think you're absolutely right on that, Greg. And John, I'm going to come to you off the back of that. Do you think that ultimately it's a case of too many cooks spoil the broth, and the fact that, there's a lot of unbalance in this United team currently, particularly at the top end of the pitch?
Yeah, I completely agree. And we're going to talk about systems and that. But basically, the issue with the 4-2-2-2, it means some of our what you call star players. They might not really know what the role is, and they're certainly having a lesser impact than what they were previously. Like Bruno's not been as effective, and I know he's been out of form, but these players look a little lost. Rashford, you just wonder how he's going to fit into this system, and I agree with all the comments. Before the game was postponed in the Brentford preview, I said he needs a spell coming off the bench, Rashford. And for me, since he came back a couple of months ago, the only games where he's looked decent, I would argue, were the games when he came off the bench. Like, came off the bench against Leicester and scored. Against Villarreal away, he looked okay. And I think he came off the bench against Tottenham and scored. So for me, Rashford's strength at the moment would be coming off the bench and playing out wide when the defensive legs are getting tired, and that for me is how you got to use Rashford at this moment until he gets some kind of form back. I agree with Greg when he said his decision making has been poor for a long time now, and in many ways, you could argue his decision making has never been particularly great. He's obviously had a number of goals and assists last season, but he wasn't playing well. Then getting a goal and assist, and that was it. And moments FC, as it were. But he's not doing that now, and like a lot of the players in there, it's completely in effect. If a lot of these players, you look at players like Ronaldo, if he's not scoring, he's not doing a lot for you. It's the same with Greenwood. He's hardly not. I know he's not played as much time under Rangnick, but again, he hasn't. Apart from the young boys game, he's been marked out the game. He was subbed off at half time, and I think that you got the two central midfielders, Fred and McTominay. Usually, you have the two up top. For me, where possible, you've got to try and get Ronaldo and Cavani playing as many games as possible together, because they are the two best players, the two most proven players that we have. You need to try and get the ball up to them, and for me, that's and I saw a clip the other day. When we signed Van Persie, when they said you've got to, if you don't get the ball up to Van Persie in that season we won the league, you won't play. And I think that's what we got to do. We got to try and get it to them up top, so that we gained Ronaldo and Cavani the chance they deserve. Cavani did have a few chances against Newcastle, but we need more of that. And I think the system needs to be looked at, because it's not getting the best out of the players, particularly the forward players who are meant to be, our best players.
Yeah, no, I think you make some very valid points there, John, and Jarvis agrees with you, says Rashford needs to be played as an impact sub. Before we move on, Weekly Armchair Sports Talk says, and this is noted to Greg here, with our midfield issues, is it now time to play hashtag Phil Jones in the six? So I'm going to come to you on that, because I think that's a good comment.
I mean, if it was Phil Jones that we signed back in the day, then yeah, absolutely, because he was a great player, but not Phil Jones now, not at all. But we do need a six. We need a six.
He can't be worse than Harry Maguire as centre half.
That's very true. That's very true. And that would be some midfield three, like Scott McTominay, Fred, and then you've got a holding midfielder of Phil Jones. That would be so unprogressive in terms. The ball wouldn't go anywhere. It would just go like between those three and then to Maguire. That's all it would do.
It'd be like pinball in there. It'd be very, very interesting. Brendan Chappell makes a good point, and I was going with the too many cooks in the kitchen analogy. He makes an interesting point here. He says it's not a matter of that. It's a matter of nobody in the kitchen have control of stuff, and that ultimately is an interesting point. It's about control, it's about leadership, it's about quality. There's a lot of really interesting comments here. I've got so much there, and I would like to continue on to give them up, but obviously we need to carry on and talk about Burnley, because that's obviously the next game for us tomorrow night. Our last game before we move into a new year. 2021, it's safe to say, hasn't been a particularly great year to be a Manchester United fan. Chucky, going to come to you. What's your hopes going into the game, and can we find some form of positivity going into 2022?
Look, I have to be pragmatic here. So I know Rangnick is going to go with the 4-2-2, because you can't do anything different right now. He needs time to figure out who he has on deck and figure out the best formation for them. I hope he's that kind of manager. I hope he's not married. I've heard he's not married to a specific system. So that gives me hope. The 4-2-2 for me is everything against Burnley. It doesn't matter about the 4-2-2-2. Is it even ambitious enough? This quick verticality reminds me of Oli, right? People always say Oli didn't have a... Yes, he did. It was quickly advance the ball quickly to the forward players as quickly as possible. And you have people, at least 3 players there that have individual magic that might make something happen. I don't see anything different from what we saw during Newcastle versus what we've been seeing during all the time. Is the players even want to stay with the ball past the second? They kept on, no one's there to take care of the ball. So what I would like to see is, back to the Brazilian analogy I gave, is a little bit more balance in the team. Have some people that can take care of the ball, right? Have a few people that, yes, let's rely on their talent, so we can mine some moments of individual brilliance, which isn't a bad thing. I know it became a bad word during the Solskjaer era, right? Individual brilliance is great. It's wonderful. We need some of that, right? Especially if you want to score more than one goal, right? Burnley is a team, where are they on the table? They are 18th, right? So that scares me. We've seen Norwich, we've seen Newcastle, and now we've seen Watford, and now we're seeing Burnley, and we haven't fared great against any of these teams, right? And I think they are chomping at the bit because they know how imbalanced we are. They know how over-reliant on Cristiano Ronaldo we are. Someone says get the ball to Cristiano Ronaldo or Cavani. If you check my Twitter feed, I posted something, a video mishmash of players trying to do just that, trying to get the ball to Ronaldo. It's just a comedy reel. We don't have players that can take care of the ball. People like Pogba, as much as he splits the opinion on the fan base, is a player that can do that. Van der Beek is a player they say can do that. We've seen it in flashes. The best Man United player is always the player not playing. So we just need to figure out a balance against Burnley. This is a team we have to dominate against. They've won one Premiership game. One, just like Newcastle, right? So on paper, I'm not scared. But based on recent history, I'm anxious. I think the players are anxious. I do not want to see David De Gea being the best player against Burnley. I'm tired of it. I don't see that anymore. So so that's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for a positive result. I'm looking for more than one goal. How about that?
Yeah, no, I think you're absolutely right. I love that staunch passion driving through your body there, Chunky. It was great there. I really, really enjoyed that. And yes, but you're right. Burnley have only won one game this season so far. That 3-1 win at home against Brentford. Callum, before I come to you for some thoughts, the obvious problem is the midfield. I would give Matic and Donny a run of games, and hopefully we can sign a midfielder in January. Obviously, there's a lot of talk in the news this week about low morale in the United dressing room. I think Maguire's feeling, we've certainly talked a lot about Maguire on the show tonight, a little bit down. Ronaldo, obviously a lot of discussion about him. What are you looking for the game tomorrow night?
I'm looking for United to start the game with intensity. Too often, even under Ollie, United need to go a goal behind before they wake up. And it baffles me because you look at the top teams in the Premier League at the moment, City and Liverpool. Before you watch those two teams play, you know exactly what the game plan is. But they come out the traps and they impose their personality in the game, as Roy Keane would say. They take the game to you from the get-go. United, I just saw under Ollie, and even the other night, kind of do a bit of pressing, kind of try and pass it about the back a wee bit, kind of try and play diagonals at times. There's no consistent structure to the team at the moment. And I know for Ralf Rangnick, he's only in the door. Carrington, to be fair, he made this point today when he was asked. Carrington was closed for 4 days due to the COVID outbreak. So he's not had as much time in the training pitch as he would like. Christmas is the worst possible time to come in and take a job at any level because it's game after game after game after game with very little break in return. And that's why, just to go back to it, that's why Ollie should have went during the international break to give a new manager that time that he needed to impose his ideas in the team. But that's long gone. In terms of tomorrow, I just want to see a team, as I say, that can start with intensity because regardless of Burnley's battling spirit and the fact that they're at the bottom scrapping for every point, any team that Manchester United put out tomorrow with the senior players at the club should be capable of beating Burnley. That's not me saying it's going to be easy. That's not me disrespecting Sean Dyche. I'm just saying as a statement of fact, the quality of footballer at Manchester United should be enough to beat Burnley at home. And that's regardless if it's Matic in midfield or McTominay and Fred or whoever it may be. There should be enough quality in the team to do that. The attitude is the big thing. The intensity is the big thing. And crucially, the system's going to be the big thing. Does he stick with the 4-2-2, as Greg has said, at the expense of Sancho and Rashford? Does he try and change the system completely? Does that maybe put other players off of form? It's a conundrum, and it's not a healthy conundrum that I'm sure Ralf would have wanted at this stage. Essentially, as I say, tomorrow, all I want from the game, Grant, and it might come across as incredibly pessimistic, is intensity and 3 points, even if it's 1-0. I just want to see intensity and 3 points because at the moment, United just need to get a consistent run of form by hook or by crook. Tottenham have been winning games, drawing games. Arsenal now, even if United win our games in hand, you're still going to be behind Arsenal. Imagine saying that at the start of the season after the shambles that they were against Brentford. So United need to simply start winning games and work in training in the days that they'll hopefully have in January to get a more consistent pattern of play that suits the players at the football club. If you're asking me what that would be, I'm not too sure. I think there's so many flaws in all the systems. 4-2-3-1, I think you've got the obvious flaw of McTominay and Fred being exposed. 3 at the back, you've got the obvious flaw of the wingers. 4-2-2-2, you've got the obvious flaw of the wingers. And if you play 4-3-3 with a holder and 2 central midfielders in front, does Bruno offer enough protection for McTominay and Fred if he's one of that midfield 2 who are playing in a flat 2? I'm not too sure. Pogba certainly doesn't, although I agree with Chucky, as a technical footballer, he's one of the best that United have. So there's so many conundrums, and I honestly don't know how he solves it, Grant. I think the obvious flaws in midfield that were there under Ollie are going to be there under Ralph, and I think he just has to try and get through as much as he can by winning games, because United as a group of individuals should win games. As I say, they should be beating Burnley no matter what team they put out tomorrow if the senior players are available. However, collectively, are they capable of going on a run of 5, 6, 7, 8 games? I've not seen enough under Ollie or even under Ralph in these 3 games to convince me that's the case.
So we've said some interesting words there. We've said intensity, we've said passion, we've seen balance. And I think those are really key things that I think every Manchester United fan listening to this wants to see tomorrow night. Apex makes an interesting point. We're too easy to play. Teams don't need to watch tape, cancel out the midfield pivot, and leave the ball with the centre-backs. I'm living on hope every game just now. And John Silk gets to give John Kermode a bit of a shout, saying, love Kermode rocking the 1990-92 shirt. So a bit of a wake-up to you there. Greg, just want to give you your thoughts on this, because United have won 3 of the last 4 meetings against Burnley, but of course they did lose very famously that game at Old Trafford 2-0 at the start of 2020. Chris Wood and G. Rodriguez scored that day. How concerned are you going into the game tomorrow, and what's your hopes going into the game tomorrow night?
Well, I think where Burnley will hurt us, and if they're going to score, they'll score from a set piece. It's effectively giving away a penalty right now for Man United as set pieces. I don't think that the set piece coach that they've brought in has done enough. I don't think we threaten enough from set pieces, and I think we still concede far too many of them. And the fact it's effectively a free header every single time, and as a team like Burnley, you can't give them that, because that's what they live on. That's their scraps that they feed on every season. Is right, lump the ball up to someone like Chris Wood or Ashley Barnes and win a header. So if you can give them, if they get 3-4 corners tomorrow, they could really hurt Man United. I agree with what Callum said, though. Like, it needs to just be intensity from the word go tomorrow from Man United. And again, I agree with Chucky that we need people that can look after the ball. I thought Man United were better the other night when Fernandes dropped slightly deeper. As much as he's erratic with his passing and he tries the wonder pass so many times, he is our most creative player. But he can progress the ball. And if it comes off, I think him in there beside someone like a Fred or a McTominay brings a bit more balance and a bit more calm to the mayhem that's going forward. But yeah, I think it just has to be, Man United have to be so intense and really try and grab an early goal and shut down Burnley, because if it's 0-0 at half time and then suddenly Burnley pile on the pressure, to think Man United they can get at them here, they get 3 or 4 corners, they get a long free kick, it's going to be same old, and it's going to be another one of these results where we look and go, well, what's wrong now? And sort of we'll be sat here again next week having the same conversations about the same issues. I do think it will take Rangnick a bit of time to fit into this, to make this system work. Obviously, there's reports this week that, or in the last couple of days, that Man United players aren't happy about some things going on, the way training is, times of training. They just really need to grow up, if I'm completely honest, and just sort of, where you're professional footballers, you get paid hundreds of thousands of pounds. This is the man that's in charge. And if he's not in charge, even in 6 months' time, like you said earlier on, he's going to be there for 2 years. He might effectively decide your destiny if you're going to continue to be a Man United player. And if any Man United player has a poor 6 months and Rangnick's suddenly in charge of transfers in a year's time and he goes, no, he doesn't work hard enough, I've been in that position. I've seen how he acts around managers. I've seen what he's like around the squad. He's a bad influence. Get rid of him. And I just think like that should be enough for Man United tomorrow, and just for the rest of the season to just kick on, just play at a level that we know we can. No one's expecting miracles. No one's expecting us to go and win every single game for the rest of the season. No one's expecting us to go on and win the Champions League, although that would be really nice. Like, Rangnick's in here to just sort of put a plaster over a bullet wound, because that's what it was going to be if we continued with the previous regime. I think it was going in such a downward spiral, both the way the performances were, the mentality, the squad. I thought it was getting worse week on week, and it was only going to get worse. Rangnick's in here really for a quick patch-up job, and there's games like this where you're just looking like Burnley, just win it. Doesn't matter how you win it, just win it, get a goal, and just sit. Get the ball, like you said, get the ball to Ronaldo, get the ball to Cavani. If those two start up front, that should be the one way we play, is get the ball to those two and just see what happens, because they've got more skill than sort of most front lines. Those two, and they've certainly got more experience than that Burnley front line playing at the top level. So if we can get the ball to them, and if we're defensively solid enough, or just defensively solid enough to not give away the set plays, and just a bit more astute with where we put the ball, not kicking it out for a corner, maybe kicking it out for a throw-in, things like that. Just being a bit more clever. Maguire's got a real enjoyment of fouling people with their back to goal just now. And he has done over the last few months, and I think that's one of the reasons maybe Shaw's not been in the team either, is because they did it a lot, and they cost Man United a lot of set plays from just players that weren't in dangerous positions. So that just needs to stop. And like Rangnick said the other night, a bit of professionalism, just play smarter. And playing smarter tomorrow would be to not give away as many set plays as we did against Newcastle, because Burnley will hurt us, especially from them.
So we've got play smarter. So that's another interesting thing to kind of note there. John, going to come to you, but before we do, just having a look at the team news out of the game. United are without Fernandes, who is suspended as a result of that booking against Newcastle. Lindelof obviously out after testing positive for COVID. Pogba is sidelined, and McTominay could be a fitness doubt. How big a loss are some or all of these players, do you think?
I think the way we're playing, I don't think anyone can grumble if they don't retain their place in the side at the moment. So I think players like Bruno would have, for me, needed a break regardless of the suspension. I personally, what I want to see from the game tomorrow is, we mentioned that we hadn't played for 2 weeks before the Newcastle game. Well, Burnley haven't played in nearly 4 weeks. So they'll be a bit rusty tomorrow. And what I want to see from us is right from the first whistle to go for them in the first 15, 20 minutes, because they will lack that match sharpness. And we've had the benefit, albeit poor performance against Newcastle, we have played recently. So hopefully there'll be high intensity from the team. And that's what I want to see. I want us to be physical as well, because Ralph mentioned about us not being physical enough in the Newcastle game, and we are getting bullied. We got bullied by Newcastle, we got bullied by Norwich as well, and we all know that Burnley are one of the most physical sides going, so we've got to pick a side which is willing to be physical, in the not an aggressive sense, but in a way to combat that. If he's fit, Cavani should start. I'd like to see Sancho get a game. We all know that Burnley have a very good record at Old Trafford, so it won't be an easy game. And I think we've got to. I didn't even consider playing Bailly because he's physical. I think it was the game in January which we won, which put us top of the league, and it was usually Maguire and Lindelof. But Solskjaer brought Bailly in for that game, and we won 1-0 and kept a clean sheet. We looked solid. So for me, I would consider playing Bailly for the physical aspect, because Burnley tend to play usually with 2 up front, very physical strikers. So you've got to be able to combat that, and that's why I think you've got to match that. You've got to go attack them straight away and just generally try and get to your forwards quickly and put them under pressure. That's what we need to do tomorrow. And if we do that, then hopefully we should get a win.
Yeah, I think that's a good mentality to think about, and getting off to a good start would certainly be very positive. I'm going to get very quickly your teams, your projected teams ahead of the game tomorrow, and your score predictions, fellas. Just a couple of points from some of our followers. Jacob says, I want to see Shaw over Tellez. Really don't rate Tellez. Proper, stringy, and not that comfortable on the ball. And L7 Del United says, there's players that don't deserve starting. Rashford, Maguire, McTominay, etc. Jerry McCann makes an interesting point. I don't know if that's his actual name. It's not particularly good. Do we think Fred could be a crucial player with RALF's high press system starts to click? That's something that's also an interesting point of view. And Apex says, Burnley are usually the most organised team on defending and pressing on their day. We could lose against them. Team lineup time. Chucky, going to come to you first. Give us your 1 to 11. You're on mute again.
Yeah. I'm muted. Can you ask the question again? Sorry.
Give us your 1 to 11.
Oh, my 1 to 11. Oh, okay. So, wow, this is going to be interesting. There's news that came out today that Rangnick has told Henderson he's not going anywhere, which is totally opposite from the kind of thing he said versus Martial or Pogba, saying if players don't want to be here, we should just let them go. So there's a lot to tuck back into the toothpaste tube, right? If I were him, I would give Henderson a shot. Why not? Regardless of what form that he has found himself in. It's Burnley. Give Henderson a shot. If he's going to be here, if you're going to force him to be here, give him some games. But I think he's going to go with Dahia. I think he's going to retain Dalot. I think he might have concerns about Varane's fitness, and that's why he's dragged Bailly fresh off the plane from the African Cup of Nations. So we might see Bailly start alongside Maguire if Varane's match speed isn't there, because that's what's afflicting the Varane, just match speed. His quality, we know that. On the other side, I don't think Shaw still makes it back. I think he goes with Tellez because he hasn't done anything drastically bad, and he still gives width in his 4-2-2-2, which I think he's going to stick with. I think he's going to go Matic and Fred because McTominay might be out. If McTominay is not out, he's going with McFred. That's his favorite player, and he's going with it. Okay? Sorry, fans. It's just the way it is. I think he might go the other two. I think he might go Donny and Sancho. Hopefully he benches Rashford, but I think he might pick him back. I'm going with Donny and Sancho. And at top, it will be beyond me if he doesn't go with Ronaldo and Cavani. It will be interesting if he makes any other decision other than that. So those are my 11.
And give us quickly a score prediction.
Because we can't keep a clean sheet, I think we're going. Let's say 2-1.
2-1 Manchester United says Chucky. Weekly Armchair Sports Talk has put his team there as well. I don't know how much it varies from the other people on the panel today. It certainly doesn't vary too different from what I would have predicted, but it's a very intriguing team nonetheless. Callum, coming to you next. Is there much changes you would make in comparison to Chucky and also that last comment I put there?
Not too many, Grant. I think De Gea starts in goal. Dalot and Tellez will play at fullback. I don't think Bailly will start. I will disagree with the Weekly Armchair Sports Talk with that. I think Maguire will play with Varane. The midfield too, I do agree again with the Armchair Sports Talk. I think Matic and Fred will play if McTominay isn't fit. Van de Beek has to come in if Fernandes is suspended, obviously with him being out. If Van de Beek can't get a start in this game with Fernandes suspended and Pogba out, then he should just walk to his next club and just refuse to come back, because it would be utterly disrespectful to him, to be honest with you, if he doesn't get a game given the suspensions and injuries in that position. Sancho, I think, has to start. I agree with Chucky that Rashford should not be starting this game. He needs time on the bench. Hopefully he can come on and impact the game. And have a point to prove from the bench, but he shouldn't start. And again, agreeing with Chucky and the Sports Talk comment there, Cavani and Ronaldo have to start. I found it intriguing, though, Grant, that Ralph commented on Cavani's fitness. Obviously, I do the show with Phil Brown Beyond the Pitch, and Phil said last year that there were doubts over Cavani's fitness, which subsequently was reported in the UK press a couple of weeks later. And he's the sort of player, I'm not comparing him to that Daniel Sturridge as a player, he's far better than Daniel Sturridge, of course he is, his career shows that, but the criticism of Daniel Sturridge in his career at Liverpool, even when he was doing really well, was if he didn't feel 100% fit, he wasn't willing to play 90 minutes, he wasn't willing to put it all on the line. Cavani can be like that at times. He's held back under Ollie from starting games and making himself available for games. Obviously, Ralph Rangnick's comment suggests he's doing the same at the moment. He's always been that kind of player. So I hope he's ready to start the game and he wants to start the game because United need him. They need his movement. Ronaldo is a superb finisher, the best finisher football has ever seen. He needs service. Will he get that service from Van de Beek and Sancho? I hope so, but I'm not so sure. Cavani, though, with his movement, can make service all for himself, so he has to start, and I just hope that he is fit enough to give us 90 minutes.
Yeah, and a very good...
Score prediction, sorry, Grant, 3-2. I think Burnley will score from the dreaded set pieces, as Greg has said. Chris Wood double.
3-2, that's very ambitious. I can't believe United will score 3 goals, but that's very intriguing to know. And I must admit as well, your Beyond the Pitch stuff with Phil Brown, very, very good as well. So do give Callum's content a look there as well. Some other interesting comments. I'm actually just having a look, saying it. I think you were saying, Chucky, didn't you, that's, who was it? Cavani is the same age as Vardy. Or is it Ronaldo? Oh, you're still on mute. Cavani, yeah, I thought it was. I was just checking to make sure I'd tick that off the list. Jarvis is saying that an interesting point. He said I would go for Sancho and Lingard in the 10s. So that's interesting to see that one and see how that work out. Dipachi says back 3 against Burnley. There were many reports regarding this. I'm not sure that would go down particularly well, but you never know. Greg, is there much changes you would make to some of the guys' comments on their selections?
Yeah, I think it will be a back 3.
I
think he will go back 3. I think he was very, very disappointed in terms of what he saw against Newcastle. There's all these reports as well that he's not married to a particular system. If you look at his time before at Leipzig, even before that at Hoffenheim, he played 2 or 3 different systems throughout the season. So he's not necessarily someone that has to just play one system. I think by being available, I think he'll play. I think it'll be by Varane and Maguire at the back. Obviously, De Gea in goal. I think your one, I suppose, would be Matic to sit just in front. So I think be a 3-1-4-2, but I believe that's what he's played in the past. And then you have sort of really wide and high wing backs in Telles and Dalot, 2 midfielders of Van de Beek and I don't know. I wouldn't have Lingard, but I think he might pick Lingard because of his energy. And I feel like because all he talked about so much after the Newcastle press, like with his post-match and stuff, was about energy. And I feel like he was really disappointed in terms of what he saw from the midfield, especially, and from players like Rashford and Greenwood. And I think they won't play because of that. And then I think he'll play a random front 2 of like Ronaldo and Sancho. I just think it'd be something strange. I think like what Callum said, Cavani, and even Roy Keane said it a couple weeks ago. He loves an injury. He's 30 odd. He loves a little injury. He picks up these knocks and things, and he doesn't make himself fully fit. I think it'll be something completely different, just because of the way that he spoke and the way he carried himself after Newcastle was someone that wasn't dreadfully impressed. And he seemed a bit miffed as well because all the noise was coming that training was going really well. They'd responded well. He was on about that they'd been given homework and stuff to do over the time that Carrington was shut. So I think it'll be something mad tomorrow. I think a 3-1-4-2 and just trying, because again, what was said earlier on, that we're too easy to play against. Yeah, we'll come up against a 3-1-4-2. I bet Burnley wouldn't have seen many of those in their time. And it's something different. It's something to think about. And at the end of the day, if we lose in a 4-2-2-2 or 2-2-2-2 or a 3-1-4-2, it doesn't really matter. I think he'll use this time in these games especially just to see what works and see who reacts well. Score prediction, I think if it comes off, could be brilliant. Could be something like 3-0, 3-1. If it doesn't, we could get absolutely hammered. But I'll go 3-1. I'll be positive.
You're going to be positive and go for 3-1. Yeah. And intriguing to see you go for a very different team selection to Chucky Ad from Callum as well. So I'm intrigued to see if your thoughts on that do come out to be true. Jarvis has picked his team, so you can let us know your thoughts on that as well. I'm particularly intrigued to... A lot of people wanting to see Ronaldo and Cavani playing up front, so... that's really good to see that as well. John, we've left you very much the best to the last. So pick your 11 and give us your score prediction.
Yeah, I think, I've not heard the rumours about 3 at the back, but if we do, I think he'll be Dalot, Maguire, Varane, Bailly. I think Shaw will probably start. He hasn't played for a while, so I think he might get a game, I reckon. Midfield, I go with Matic, Fred, Van der Beek, and Sancho. I think if he's field play for Cavani, and I will say Ronaldo, but it wouldn't surprise me if he benched Ronaldo and maybe starts a Greenwood. So, but I'll go Cavani, Ronaldo up top, and score prediction, I'll go 1-0.
You're going 1-0. I'm sort of leaning towards a 1-0 as well. I think it's going to be one of these games which is going to be very tight and very compact, and I think just maybe one goal might separate it. I'm unfortunately not like Stumpy Candletop, who's went 7-3 United, which should be very interesting if that does come off. I'm sure.
Interesting about that, because I think in 1963 we played them on Boxing Day and we lost 6-1, and then about 2 days later we played them at Old Trafford and we beat them 5-1, which was the first time George Best ever scored for United. And so we played them in 2 days, so a 6-1 and a 5-1. So.
Weekly Armchair says 4-1 United. So very varying range of scores and team lineups there. So we'll just have to wait and see what team Ralph puts out tomorrow evening ahead of that Burnley game. But that is just about us at the end of another episode of the show. It's gone on a little bit longer than the usual ones, but I think we've had a really good panel tonight, which I think makes even better. And it's been superb to have Chucky on the show. Chucky, where can people find you, my man?
At the Daily Mank and dailymank.com.
Excellent stuff. You do some fantastic content on Manchester United, my man. So keep it going. You're doing some really great stuff. Callum, it's been great to have some real royalty on the show, and you've been really good contributor to the show. Give us a little bit of a flavour where people can find your content, my man.
Just before I do that, Grant, you've knitted the show well together, so keep up the great work on your side. You can find me on Twitter at CallumFWI. Write for World Football Index, and my 50th interview will be published tomorrow with former United manager Ron Atkinson, so please check it out. Thank you.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Go check out Callum's work. It's very, very well done, and some really great interviews so far, and obviously that very, very good programme he does with Phil Brown, Beyond the Pitch, some great content as well. Greg, it's been great to have you on, my pal. Where can people find you?
So I don't want to put my handle up on there, but it's on Twitter at Greg_D_Chambers, and you also see me on the Weekly Armchair Sports Talk most Fridays talking about basketball as well. So if you're into NBA or anything like that, me, Rach, and Tim do a show pretty much every week talking about basketball, everything going on there, which is another little side interest that we all have.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, some great work you do as well, and some great content and enthusiasm as well to boot. So keep up the great work, my man, and I'm sure 2022 will be great for you guys. John, we want to finish the show with yourself because you've been absolutely fantastic once again. Where can people find you on the socials?
Yeah, you can find me. I've got my my Twitter in there, so it's at John_Kermo2.
Excellent stuff. And the last comment goes to the ever-present Weekly Armchair Sports Talk. We will get a big sue from Ronnie tomorrow. Let's hope that that will indeed happen. Well, this has been another episode of the Fan Zone on All for United. I have been Grant. It's been great to once again host the show. Do check us out. Please like and subscribe. You can find us on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and all other various social media platforms. I hope you all have enjoyed your Christmas, and I want to wish you all the best for a very happy new year when it comes. All the best for a healthy and successful 2022. Whatever you're up to, keep it here for all terrific Manchester United content. And until next time, it's goodbye from me and the panel. Goodbye.
Sue!